Okay, we have our next speaker coming up. Temiseva. Hopefully I got that really close. I tried really hard. I practiced and everything.
That's close.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Aki is going to talk to us about marketing as a not-for-profit, when email rocks, even if your market offers you the blues. We are going to be taking questions at the end, so please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box. If you put them in the chat, we may miss them. So please do use the Q&A box. You'll find it right at the bottom of the screen below the presentation next to the chat window. And Aki, I'm going to turn it over to you right away. Derek is going to drive the slides for you, and I will come back about 5 minutes before the end, and we'll take a gander at the questions.
All right, thank you. Can everybody hear me well, I hope?
Yes, you sound great.
Perfect. So
Derek,
thank you, Derek.
Derek, whenever you're ready with the slides.
Cool. So thank you, Derek and Matt, for inviting me. I feel very honored to be here. So I'm hoping these next 30 minutes can be an inspiration, and you'll see my contact details on the opening slide. You'll have also them in the end. So I said, hopefully we can have a little bit of time in the end for any Q&A. And so I'm hoping just, joining these, my first time joining this conference, that, these learnings can inspire a broader marketing community to do even better and achieve our targets. But before we then dive into deeper, let me just give a little bit of that context where I'm coming from. So I work for an organization as Chief Marketing Development Officer called Children Believe. Children Believe is an international Canadian-based NGO focusing on giving children a voice across the globe. We've been around for 60 years. We have about 30,000 supporters. We're about 30 to 40 million Canadian dollars in our budget, in our size. And our focus is on education. So we believe that education is the biggest tool that we can give children and youth when they grow up, to then empower them and kind of choose their own future and be successful in lives. So on slide 2, I just want to dive into a little bit of the situation and where we were. So the context is that we were before called Christian Children's Fund of Canada, and obviously that name was kind of outdated and didn't even linked to our mission anymore as really what we were doing, and was misleading for lots of people. So we had decided we will rename ourselves as Children Believe. And as you know, when you do, if you have any one of you been part of branding changes, there is a lot of uncertainty around that. Will your existing supporters, donors still love you when you change? And so what is the communication around that? So this is kind of the setup as we then enter the slides I want to be talking about, which is really about year 2021. So some of you might recall there was something called the pandemic, which hopefully most of us are able to kind of put behind us now. So this is what was going for us. We launched our new name in 2019, October, and in 2020 we were hit by the pandemic, and then on top of that, we saw that the donor base that we had was kind of an aging donor base, and part of the new kind of audiences we were going to go after. We're going to react to different kinds of messaging, both from content and the way to go. So we decided that, and of course through some testing, that email was really the way to kind of retain that donor value, because we definitely don't want to lose who we had, but we can't just stay put, and we need actually to make sure we have new people coming along the way. Challenging situation where you might think like this is this is the end of it all, but no, I think and so what the marketing team overnight, just to give you another context before we dive into the specific email learnings, overnight we transferred from a brick and mortar type of office into a virtual office. So literally from Friday and next Monday we were all set up, and so we had to learn really quickly different things. And as you will see in the next 25 minutes or so, I think sometimes those hiccups and things push you to think in a much faster and agile way that would have never happened without the pandemic. So in a way, what seemed to be a curse became a blessing. Next slide, slide number 4, please. So there are 3 things that we decided to focus on our emails. We know emails had been kind of working for us, but said, I think we can do better. So we started with brand recognition. So we really now, especially at the time of the change, wanted consistency and brand cohesion. So we built a brand email template. So earlier, we had different kinds of emails going, whether it was donor relations or marketing. It didn't necessarily feel it came from the same shop. And then we had the added challenge associated because our brand colors name changed. So it wasn't just the brand name, we changed brand colors. We kind of really looked for like a very different shop. So obviously we kept previously known as CCFC, but putting that aside, I think it was all about, making sure that, whatever comes from our shop, people will say, oh, this is Children Believe. And then the other thing was the regularity of the emails. We wanted to send them at the same time each month. For example, email newsletter became one of our biggest open items. And then we also continued to kind of send asks, thank yous, and happy holiday wishes, to keep Children Believe on the minds of donors. And we, by the way, found that, there was a lot of giving in the thank yous, which I'm sure you've also noticed that it's not always about the ask. And so what we do is the kind of asks we make. We have special gifts you can send the children. We had campaigns around Giving Tuesday, but all of them, they came at regular intervals. People could expect them, and they all looked the same. Next slide, please. So the other thing was around content. So in the brand, it's not just a template. You kind of have got to feel that this is the same brand talking to you. So we followed monthly campaign themes to build the momentum and create time and opportunity to build that donor interest. Again, I'm sure, for some of you, bread and butter, content calendar. But again, for where we were coming, this was new. And then very important, linking all our email messaging to our social. So in the slide, you see it's a picture from our very newest campaigns, where we raise money for Ukraine, and we're also helping through our partners the rehabilitation of many of those children having going through those horrors. So on the left, you saw the email, and on the right, then you see one of our social media posts. So very much not only on the content in terms of copy, but also in the visual feel. We link them so that message is enforced every time. And then we repped our digital brand ads to support the emails. So email was kind of the king. We know that when the email goes out, others follow. And again, sometimes these had been kind of competing priorities, not always talking to each other, too many messages, the idea of too many tennis balls thrown at you. Next slide. Voice. So number one, learning, let's be really clear about the brand and its, our coherence. So we would want to change, and again, this wasn't so much a change from being rude before to being friendly, but we kind of amped up, so we researched what do people like about us, and they said we like that kind of friendly, neighborly approach. So we added more personalization into mail as much as our systems allowed. So we're not Amazon, so it's not that personalized, but as much as we could, just make it feel that we're talking to you. And what's really, I think, unique to us even in our space is that we have a more informal conversational tone, which also brings to that we never assume we know how people feel, and also through the pandemic. So we're very careful with the language of not talking down to people, but always kind of listening to them. So we were kind of, if you wish, walking alongside the people in our voice. And again, that's sometimes, again, not something that happens in our sector. When the needs are urgent, sometimes the asking is really hard. You've got to help these people there and there, right? So, but we went more like, we understand you, our dear donors, our supporters as Canadians, which you guys are going through. And then telling that in a non, I would say, non-complex way, using everyday language that people would relate to, not using the very hierarchical or very complex programmatic language that we'd use again often in our sector. And then very important, we always thanked. We all said, we understand if you can give and we still value you. So please remember, the work we're doing. And I think that really paid, dividends on people, one, staying with us, because as you remember, in the beginning of the pandemic, people didn't know, we didn't know what's going to happen with unemployment. Are we going to drop in our support? But that definitely wasn't the case, as you will see as we come to the results at the end of the presentation. Next slide. Yet on voice. So a couple of examples about those friendly and empathetic. Depending on what size of screen you're following this presentation. I'm not sure if you're able to read that, but the one on the left, this, kind of you usually kind of just read a little bit of it, like just hi, Steve. Oops, in our effort to get urgent help with children and their families during the second wave of COVID-19 in India, we mistakenly sent you an email yesterday asking for support. We're sorry for the confusion. Our goal was to first reach out to sponsors of children in India, not all child sponsors. Of course, if you do want to help children in India, you can still provide support here. So this was a really oops. I wanted to share this to say, we're not perfect, and I know there must have been some of your careers and your companies, you've made mistakes. I am a firm believer that you can always, turn the mistake into a golden opportunity, and when you're acting out of honesty. So we were really sorry we had bothered people, and we said rather than just, not do anything about it, or B, just be very sorry about it. We're going to, again, in our friendly tone, if you check the voice, we say, oops, we did a mistake, so sorry. But then gave that soft ask, by the way, well, since you got it now, if you did want to give, you can, of course, obviously. And, this was one of our better asks. So it was totally by accident, but it wasn't an accident in the way that we were authentic, and we kept our voice. We kept our, who we were. On the right-hand side, you'll see another kind of an ask we had, and this is on our GCAT, which is our gift catalog in our internal language, which is one of our key asks during the holiday seasons. Again, you could pack a lot in an email, so we try to keep it short, but not so short that people don't know what you're talking about, right? So and links are very important, obviously. So you just say, Gifts for Good has 54 ways to inspire the world's next doctors, or accountants, teachers. In fact, the following new gifts will clear the path to learning for many kids. So just working, choosing words like kids or children, all kind of thought through what we want to do. And then you've had, just, linked to some of those things. And also then always kind of highlighting how easy it is to give, right? So, and hopefully then people have truly that experience when they go to our website and check out. One more slide on voice. So I kind of mentioned this transparency and authenticity already a couple of times. But to add to that, to just kind of do it very consistently, we had different people signing our emails. For some very tactical reasons, we might still have that. But we had a lot of CEO signing, just to go, it's the CEO, like you should really kind of listen to this because it's the CEO. So I'll go to with most email campaigns, especially in 2020, we said your friends and children believe. And so then of course we could leave that, we could live out that promise, where they send people on the phones, people connecting with us, and we believe we are doing that. And so also accountability. We asked for gifts and shared how many were received. So again, here, for example, the experts you see on the slide, did you hear? Thanks to amazing sponsors like you, nearly 2,400 sponsored kids received gifts to support their education this summer. So we listen to them, we try to learn from what they tell us. And if they're missing something, they're saying, they come through other mediums to us, like, hey, I gave this and this, you didn't tell me this. So next time around, we try to learn from that. For example, in the gift catalog and the previous ones, if they're like, I don't understand what that 5 times thing is, like, you said my money is going to go 5 times the impact. So we said, okay, we're going to explain it better. And so we're always kind of, as much as we can, which sounds funny because it's kind of a mass email anyway, but we're trying to be as transparent and authentic also in the dialogue, so that we are as if we were in constant conversation. Next slide, please. And so this goes to my next slide here. And so we do listen. So this one, for example, we see the example here on the right side of the slide. It's about a survey. We said, we wanted people to take our survey because it's super important. So we sent an email on that. So we sent in 2 patches. First one got a click-through rate of 3.2%, which is in our industry pretty high. And then we learned how to talk about that. We sent it second time and it went up to 4.1%. And again, the things we changed, people, so that we listen to them in terms of how they want to be talked to. And of course, there's a whole other thing about what we learned in the surveys, but this was just promoting about the surveys. So whether we were kind of promoting surveys, we were making asks, it always felt like it is your friends and children believe. So I've talked about the brand, I talked about the voice. So last, I want to talk about the process, which is often seen probably much like the boring part of this. So I believe that, when you get both the strategy and the detail right, then that's when you have great results. So we at least try to kind of go for that. So the process was more around the detail. Again, 1 point person oversaw the email calendar and content to create more of that intention and reducing the double ask and create better consistency. So in the past, the different departments had sent different columns, had some kind of communications to a supporter base. So no, we need to know when we talk to our supporters that, everybody knows what's going out when. And again, sounds simpler than it is to actually get it calendarized when you have so many, competing messages. And also you can appreciate the balancing out of like how many asked and how many other kinds of things. But to start, we said there's one person who will oversee this. And then we created a small team of experts, across different functions, marketing, communications, and donor relations, who approve each email. So we make sure that, those kind of mistakes which you kind of then saw, which was more of a database thing, wouldn't happen, to keep their focus and perspective. We call it internally a purple folder process, according to our brand colors. What's amazing is that through that consistency of process, we were able to increase our email cadence. And of course, with the increased segmentation, you could even push it further because not all the same people were getting the same things. But the last really good point about this is, you're able to do this in a more agile way. As we did the brand and coherence and the voice, and you had the process in place, we could actually turn emails, around in 1 or 2 days. Right. So it sounds like a burdensome process. Oh, you had a small team of experts, everybody had to approve it. But it was basically, sometimes even less, but 24 hours. Here's the draft. What's the input? Let's go out with this. And as you can appreciate, if you go back in 2 years, this was super important during COVID because things kept changing, right? So the messages and the ads kept changing. And then you had all the other things, of course, as I said, you saw some of the fundraising for Ukraine, for example, which was not in the cards. So how much of that are you going to put into the mix? Because we do want to care for this too. But we have our long-term development programs that we also want to raise funds for, and then you need to do the thinking, etc. So this agility is a super thing that, again, as I said, we weren't as agile when we're face-to-face. As an organization. So being virtually and setting up these processes has really helped us. Next slide. So on process, keep it simple, real emails. So along with the friendly voice, keep the structure simple. Keep repeating. We might think like, oh my God, like sometimes you want to be creative and you want to come and throw other things. So no. It's important if this works, and this is a simple thing, people are used to this. Every one of us are getting so many emails. So make sure that our emails are simple. People know what we're asking, what we're trying to communicate, keep them concise. And also, of course, goes without saying, optimize for mobile and tablet. But the goal was that always they felt that the email came from a friend, not a marketing machine, because that's the worst. We hate it when feel like, okay, I'm one of those 1 million people who just received this. So we really tried to stay away from that. So just a couple of more slides before the Q&A. So what did this do for our business? So email was doing well even before this, but in 2021, it became our best online income channel by far. So any form of digital income that we counted for, email was totally number one. And it was also the driver that the number one driver, the digital income, followed by the organic direct in the third spot. And the point number two is it's all about money, right? So it's plus 110%. So we more than doubled our income from year on year, from 21 to 20. So obviously we felt very happy. We continue to develop on this route, and I can continue to trust on email to deliver even on the tough times. So the key learning is that 3 ways that we've learned is that like you can build a successful campaign even at the toughest times is clearly refine your brand, know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, how are the other folks going to know who you are? Build a voice that is yours. You can't go ever wrong with real and authentic and trustworthy, but it has to be authentically yours. So you can make this while being real and authentic, how can it be your voice? And create a clear process. And I think you have to, the key learnings, you have to do all of these 3 things. If you did only one of them or 2 of them, you'd be skipping a beat, and I think you wouldn't be as successful. But if you do these 3 things at the same time, you can really kind of lift up your results. And so hoping that these learnings were of use to some of you listening there, and I think we have about 6-7 minutes, Derek, for any questions.
Great, thanks very much, Aki. That was very insightful. We do have a couple questions. So the first one that comes in from the audience, I'm going to paraphrase it just a little bit, but have you found an ideal frequency to balance sort of the relationship message with the request for donation style message in a way that doesn't, sort of put your subscribers off or turn them off in regards to participating with the program?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't think we have a specific number formula like 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, but I'm just going to, based on the broad experience. So within a week, we'd have several emails that could go out, and I would say within a 2 weeks period, you'd want to do, if not a thank you, you want to do something else. But ideally, depending on where you are, even within a week, you should do something else than just an ask. So if you were pushing me to a number, I would say maybe 4-to-1.
Okay, that's a good ratio. And you would just refine that, because obviously every organization's response rates are slightly different. So just sort of a test and iterate, find the right balance for your organization. When it comes to sort of the mix of even cross-channel, so you're talking, in your social channel, you tied that into your email channel and sort of brought it into alignment. What was the process like for that in regards to managing maybe your social team and your email team and making them work together?
Yeah, no, I think the beauty of a smaller organization, depending on what size of organizations you guys work in, is that we're all very flat organizations. So I'm kind of staying on top of that, not necessarily of every decision detail, but making sure that happens. And then the people working in digital team are few, so they would be part of the same team who would be doing digital. And so the things where I was referring more, really making an effort in the process was kind of where we weren't as good before the the launch and the pandemic, was probably bringing comms and donor relations and the digital team together. But social media in our house is also housed under kind of marketing, so that helps. But it's still, it's a kind of the technique is just, it's just keeping, and this is the trick, obviously, is like, how do you make a plan and still stay agile, right? So what we've done, like we're kind of, we have more of an annual plan, but then we make a monthly plan from that annual plan, and even there we kind of allow ourselves to change if things change. So we always started with the email. I think it was important, like, kind of, and again, from, we're a charity raising money for what we believe in, so it's kind of money first, right? So the money has to be like, what is the money making email, and how can we support it with social? And that was kind of the thought process, and therefore the social kind of had to follow. It wasn't like some other people posting whatever.
Okay. And did
Hopefully
that
that was
mix?
helpful.
Yeah, no, that was definitely helpful. Did that mix change at all between sort of the 2019 into the 2020 sort of pandemic? Did you move like less social during that time, more email, or did that balance change at all?
So no, I think we increased social, so we became more active because there are so many stories to be told. So there might have been some socials that, if that the cadence of the social was even more so than the emails, right? So I think there's a room to increase the social, because you've got to be agile in that space. But we know that, we just make sure that when you have those campaign emails, that they are supported by social. But I think overall, I think we pushed more social, and again, and we went like broader stories with those additional stories to keep more context, because obviously, there are those hardcore supporters who know everything we do, but then the majority of the sponsors, and other donors and supporters, they would follow social and get more information there. So we tried to, we used a lot of video, we used a lot of links. So again, the actual social wouldn't become burdensome. So but you'd get kind of glimpses of our work and what we do.
That's great. Thank you very much for all of those answers. If there was one thing you would ask our audience to do today to sort of help your organization, what would it be?
Or to help us?
Yeah, why not? We're a room full of marketers.
I love that.
What can we do for you?
Thank you so much. I should have probably been prepared for that. I think this was so kind-hearted. So I'd love you to promote us. So if you were inspired at all about Children Believe, and you need to find a bit more before you felt comfortable promoting us, please reach out. You've got my email on the slide. You can reach out through our website. We truly are making change in children's lives every day. But I feel we're a bit of a best kept secret in Canada still, partly because of brand change, but also I don't think we were outward facing in our promotion before. So we need all the helps and connections. We know whether they're the corporates or people who have funds that really have their heart to helping children. So please tell us, tell your friends, tell others, either while having a pint or promoting on your social. We'd really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. A wonderful organization, and I'm very glad you took time to share your story with us today.